All right, so I went to that party on Thursday. It was a party where I didn't know anyone. I decided to go just to push myself out of my comfort zone and all that. It was like an alumni party thrown by my college, and there was like a decent amount of people there. I don't know, 50, 75, 100 people. All right, so I'm not sure how to tell this story. So, in retrospect, it was generally a bad experience, but it's really all about perspective. I could choose to look at it as mostly a good experience. Although I don't regret that I went. I think, coming out of my shell or whatever, getting socially skilled is something where you have to go through a struggling phase at first. It's like, if you're going to be a athlete and you're a couch potato to start with, you're going to go through a lot of pain initially. I'll just tell this chronologically. I almost brought my phone and like tried to, would film it. That might have actually been a good idea, like a good icebreaker to have just tried to film the whole thing and just gone around to different people and like, hey man, I'm doing this vlog. You want to be part of it? Let's just talk about random stuff. It may seem like it would have been awkward, but actually it would have probably made it easier because then I would have had some kind of role to play. And so I think what it is that when I'm at these social functions, I feel like I myself being there with no purpose, I'm not adequate, I guess. And that if I'm not fulfilling some kind of role, like I'm there to film for my vlog, if it's just me there to talk and to get to know people and for them to get to know me, that just doesn't seem like enough to me. And it's like, well, why would I matter in that situation when there's all these other people here? So I got there and I was nervous going into it, but I was like, I'm just going to keep going. I can't back out. When I checked in, the guy's like, here's your 2 drink tickets. And I was like, 2 drink tickets? And he was like, yes, 2 drink tickets. And I thought I was only getting 1 drink ticket. That little detail becomes important later that I got 2 free drinks. It's something, that if I was writing it, I would try to highlight it, a little bit like, oh, and his smile widened as he looked at the 2 tickets. I purposefully kind of slowed myself down because I knew that I was going to be nervous, and I knew that, your body language, your posture, and everything can kind of affect your mood. So I was just trying to look confident, standing up straight, all that stuff, putting my shoulders back. I did a lot of this at the party where I looked around and just kind of briefly made eye contact with people, which it was probably weird because I never talked to them. I just would like kind of look around, like, yeah, I'm looking around. So I went to the bar, I got a Manhattan, and I immediately started to feel out of place. Not out of place, but like I didn't have a place. Like maybe I belong there, but just not really. Does that make sense? Like socially, I was on the same level as these people. It was just like there was nowhere for me to go. And I realized as I looked around that I think I was the only person there who did not know anyone else. There was maybe one other person who didn't know anyone else, but he apparently was some kind of, social butterfly or whatever, and he could just go around and talk to everyone. That's not me. What? See, there's a limiting belief. I say that's not me. I'm not the kind of person who can do that. But I could be if I just force myself to do it. And so I just found a spot and stood there with my drink and I kind of stood around. I guess I don't like being passive and just waiting for people to come up to me, but that's sort of what I was doing at that point. I was, allowing myself to be open. So if someone wanted to say, "Hey, buddy, how's it going?" Then I would have been open to it. So I was drinking my Manhattan, which was very good. The Manhattan was very good. There's another little breadcrumb for you. And I was facing the bar, and they had a TV on in the bar. Here's a rule for bars: if there's not a sporting event on, don't have the TV on because I look stupid. My eye is naturally going to go to the TV when it's on and I don't have someone to talk to. And when it's the news that on mute or like Hell's Kitchen on mute, I look stupid looking at it. Maybe that's my fault, but I blame the bar. No TVs unless it's sports, okay? Anyway, that was a side rant. So I stood there for a while. I did talk to a couple people who kind of came over. A few guys came around. That social butterfly I mentioned came around and talked to me for a few minutes and then got out of there fast. I think he knew that the conversation wasn't going anywhere. While I was talking to the social butterfly, these girls came in around on the other side of me. We were all around a table. So I was like, well, at this point, they sort of halfway surrounded me, and it's awkward if I don't acknowledge them. So I just struck up a conversation. I was like, hey, how you going? And this one girl in it started asking questions very rapid fire, and that put me off. Like like I felt like it put me off balance. I've used the INFJ angle for a lot of my videos so far, and I feel like as INFJs, we usually are the listeners more often than not in a conversation, and the questioners, though we can play any role basically. But I was so immediately being asked questions that I was like, whoa, what's going on? And I don't know if this is our INFJ intuition at work. I could sort of predict the future a little bit. So this was an alumni event, and I was thinking to myself, well, if I met a student from the nursing school, I could use a line like, "Oh, so you're huddled away in the building where the nurses are at that school." So I don't know why that came to mind before the party, and lo and behold, one of the girls there was a nursing student, so I used that line, and it actually kind of opened her up a little bit, not much. And I don't know what happened, but the conversation quickly fizzled out. Another girl came over to their group, and they all started talking to her, and it was sort of like I just faded away and went invisible. Which is funny, because I was standing right there talking to them. I'm 5'11", I'm not small. I don't fade away in general, but I do. I saw a video by an INFJ, Tom Davison, who's got a good channel. If you haven't checked it out, you should. Where he talked about a lot of times he felt like he just faded away in social circumstances. And I was like, yes, that happens all the time. And it's especially jarring when it happens right after you were not invisible, where you can just I don't know. I don't know if this happens to everyone, every introvert. It has to do with your energy, I guess. I guess if you're not putting out enough energy, it's easy for people to kind of just leave you. And in some ways, if you're pulling energy into yourself, I'm just kind of talking off the top of my head and making something up, but I must have been on a very bad vibration if you believe in that kind of thing. So after that, I was like, well, time for drink number 2. And knowing that it would be awkward and really making me look like a dummy if I just left that group, I said, well, it was very nice meeting you. I'm going to go get another drink. And we said goodbye. So I salvaged some of my dignity there. And of course, I'm overanalyzing all of this. So they might have just thought, hey, we're all having fun, whatever. They probably didn't care. So I went over to the bar, and this other guy came over, and it was funny. He only had $4, so he's like, what can I get with this? And he was trying to haggle the price of the beer with the bartender. I actually don't know if that was my second or third drink. I think it was my second one. I think that was drink ticket number 2. So I struck up this conversation with this guy who was haggling for the beer, and he wasn't an alumni, or an alum, singular. He wasn't one. He was brought by some friends, so he sort of knew people, but not really. And so I had talked with him for a while, a good 15 minutes or so, and that was interesting. It was nice to make a connection with someone there. And then he was like, well, I've got to catch up with my friends again. And then I just stood there at the bar for a while. I couldn't go back to where I was, because that would have been very awkward. So I had to stay where I was. And it was I was trying to maintain a confident, open posture. I looked like I just was having a good time being by myself. I think in these situations, once I hesitate and don't take action, I start to think about it, and I'm like, well, now I can't go over to these people. I've made eye contact with that person. Because I didn't act right away and go talk to them, now I can't, because it will look super awkward. I think that's probably just a self-limiting belief there. I don't think that's really true. I think that no one would really care if you made eye contact with them and then 5 minutes later said, hey, what's up? So I think this is maybe a little something that I can take away from this is don't think, just go right in. And the times when I felt best were when I was talking to people, and that would have been the easiest time to go talk to someone else. Say, hey, it was great talking to you. I'm going to go talk to this person over here, and just go. Don't think. Just act. I think that's what it is. I think that's the secret to this. I think I'm figuring something out, is that nothing good in these situations can come from thinking. Also, there was a point in the middle of it where I was trying to be mindful. I was practicing mindfulness, if you will. I was like, what am I feeling right now? And I just to try to break down the anxiety that I was feeling, because I felt anxiety pretty much the whole time, except when I was chatting with people. Because the whole time when I was not chatting with people, I was worried about how I looked, what I was going to do next, all that stuff. And that's why you can't think, you just need to act. So I was like, what am I feeling? I feel my heart beating pretty heavily. I can really feel it in my throat. And my head feels kind of disconnected from my body. And my extremities feel a little bit numb. But this anxiety isn't me. What I'm feeling isn't me. It's just like what I'm feeling. And I think that I mean, it didn't really help me do anything, but it was helpful because it prevents you from going into a panic about it. Do you know how if you realize, oh man, I'm really anxious, oh no, well, what's going to happen? And then you like make it worse because you're panicking about it because you can't separate yourself from the feeling. So I was just like, my body's feeling this right now. That's okay. I finished drink number 2 and went to the bar to get drink number 3. And I wanted to get a beer, and the bartender was like, I think you want another Manhattan. And I was like, no. And he was like, I think you do. And I was like, okay. That was a mistake. But he was just so charming that I had to give in to him. And so I had a third Manhattan. Big mistake. Don't have 3 Manhattans. Just don't do it. Yes, I had a lot to drink. Yes, I was not sober. I kept looking back over at at the girl from nursing because I thought she was pretty cute. And I was like, maybe I could get her number. Even though I hadn't really talked to her much, I was like, maybe if I can get her alone for a moment, I can kind of chat her up and see if she'd like to go out. And that was sort of one of the goals in the back of my mind, is like, it would be nice to, if the opportunity presents itself, to meet someone and go out on a date. So I eventually I did manage to talk to her alone, but by that time I had finished the third Manhattan and had ordered a pint of winter ale. Yes, that's 3 Manhattans and a beer, and it was probably a high alcohol beer too. And I got her number, and she hugged me too. I said, do you want to go out on a date? And she was like, sure. And I haven't heard back from her since, and it's been like a day since I've sent her a text, so that's probably not going anywhere. I felt really good at the end of it because I got her number. But looking back on it, I'm like, I think I wasn't sloppy drunk, okay? I was intoxicated, yes. But I don't know how I came across to people. I just don't know how I came across. Another thing I learned is that I can't rely on 3 Manhattans to get me over social anxiety because that's not good. So next time I'm not going to drink when I go out, which sounds like it's going to the extreme opposite, but I need to get over this naturally. So overall, it was not a great experience at the time. It ended okay. In retrospect, though, I'm like, I probably made kind of a fool of myself. But it's okay. I would do it again because I think this is necessary. This is all a learning experience. It's necessary. To all you introverts out there, all those of you dealing with social anxiety, it's not easy and it's going to be painful. I'm sorry to tell you that. You're going to have to just suffer a little. And so I hope to keep you all updated on what I'm doing. I think I'm going to do some more videos on social growth and, kind of just overcoming self-limiting beliefs. I think that's the direction I'm going to go, and talk about other things more specific to INFJs and things like that. So thanks for watching. This has been a very long video, but I hope you were mildly entertained, and I'll see you next time.